Hey y'all, I just want to show you how you can take this simple tracer and turn it into your very first door hanger. It's so easy. You don't even have to be especially creative or crafty or artistic. You just trace it onto your surface and go, and I'm about to show you how. The first thing you do is take a piece of graphite or carbon paper, and you can see there is a dull side and a shiny side, and you want to make sure that that shiny side is face down on your surface. And then you take your tracer and put it face up over that and just line it up really good, and then just take a plain old ink pen and trace over everything, and I'll show you what that looks like. And just all along while you're tracing, and then as you finish, put one hand down on top so that it doesn't move, and then just raise the edge to make sure you got it all. See, I see a little place I missed right up here. The center of the W I didn't get. So I'm gonna go back and just trace over there right quick. And just pull it back up to make sure I got it all. I got it a little wonky, but we can fix that when we go in to paint it. So just remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're gonna paint right over a lot of those little imperfections, even the stray marks made by the graph paper. So now it's time to look at our paint colors. And we're just basically gonna be using 3 brushes and let's see, about 4 colors. So we'll use this 1-inch wash brush, and then we're going to use this little liner brush to get in some of the really tight places, and also a little 1/4-inch brush like this right here. So let's get into it. When you're done tracing, you'll just see these light trace marks made by the graphite paper. And so I'm just going to start the background with a color called Morning Mist. I love the Deco Art Americana colors, and Morning Mist is just one that I really love for the backgrounds, but really for this, any light color background will work. But I'm just going to start by going in the centers of the loops of the letters with this little tiny round brush to just kind of get some of the smaller details done first, and then we'll get into the big parts of the painting. Get the tedious parts done first, and then you can move on to the fun stuff. So the colors for the pumpkin can be interchangeable. You can do it either that really pretty blue-green color that we see a lot of pumpkins called now. I think they are called blue pumpkins. I'm actually not sure about that though. But you can do it either in that color or in orange. But I think I am going to do this one in the blue color. And I also think I'm going to start in with this slightly larger brush. You can actually get in places sometimes that are pretty tight with it, because you can lay it down this on its little edge right there to go into the smaller areas. And you can just kind of pull it around those curves pretty easily. This brush has actually seen a lot of wear. If you're using a newer brush, it's even easier than that to just tip up on its edge like that and go around those corners. And if you get over the lines, don't worry too much about it, because we will fix that when we come back to do the lettering. So it is not a really big deal. So mainly just getting around each one of those letters. I do, however, think I'm gonna have to switch to a newer brush. And these, I just get in a big packet like this. It includes all these 1/4 inch wash brushes and little round detail brushes, and I get those on Amazon, and I will try to link that below. But I am pretty sure you get all those brushes for less than $10. I want to say it was around $7, but I could be wrong. Anyway, just really inexpensive. So painting is a really inexpensive hobby to get started with. You don't even have to use like deco art paint. That just is my preference, because I do think it has better coverage than a lot of the cheaper paints. But I think if you are just wanting to get started for as little as possible, just jump in and use whatever kind of paint you have on hand. You can even go to the dollar store or the Dollar Tree, I think the Dollar Tree too, and get paint sometimes. So just use what you have. Just get started. That's the main thing. And then as you move along, because painting is, to me, pretty addictive, then you can gradually just build your stockpile of things that you use. But it's really, all you need to get started is just these 3 basic brushes. And I also recommend these Posca paint pens, but you don't even have to have those. But that's just what we're going to use to do our lettering. So one thing you do need to kind of watch is just not get a big glob of paint right along the edge there of your letters, because it'll make a little ridge. So just when you're getting right up to the edge, try to make sure your brush is not just overly loaded. So I am not the quickest painter, you'll see. So what I'm going to do is just, while I do the background, because that's all it is just get into the smaller places with the flat of the brush. And then when you get to the bigger ones, the bigger, like these large open areas to the sides, you can use your 1 inch wash brush. But I'm just going to put it on a time lapse now and get done with the background, and then we'll get to the good stuff. So using these 3 brushes, the 1 inch flat brush, the 1/4 inch flat, and the liner brush, or the little small round one, it's actually pretty easy to get in to all these little small places. But if you want an even easier way to do it, you can always just take a Sharpie and trace around those lines, and that way you can just paint over. If your background color is light enough, like you wouldn't want to do Sharpie and then do a dark brown, because that's going to cover over and you won't be able to see your lines for painting the rest of the tracer. But that is one thing you can do. Another thing you can do, if you have time to let your base coat dry really well, you can paint the background and then lay the tracer down over that and do it in that order so that you don't have to go around all the little tight places. The only thing with that is sometimes the graphite paper will leave little stray marks, and sometimes you can get them off with a pencil eraser, but it just depends. Or you can paint over them, but most of the time I like to just trace it off and then just go around it. So I say most of the time it's about 50-50. So anyway, our background is done, and it is time to get into the fun part to me, which is painting the pumpkin and the flowers. So we're just going to start with this color called Burnt Umber and go ahead and paint the pumpkin stem. And you won't need very much of that out on your palette. And I just use a foam plate for that. And, oops, that has some little crusties on it. Just lightly load your brush and just use the edge to go along the edges of the pumpkin, and you may need more than one coat. That is just kind of a judgment call, just depending on what it looks like after it's dry. For right now, I'm just going to put this first coat on there just lightly, and we probably will need another coat, but that's going to dry pretty quick because I'm just putting, like I said, a very thin, light coat on there. But use that very edge of the brush to get along the edges and just let it do most of the work for you. And if you feel more comfortable using the little round liner brush, then break that out. But usually it's going to be doable to get this done. See how I'm just tipping that up on the very end to get along that edge. So it's pretty doable just with this little 1/4 inch flat brush. So once you get your stem done, then we're just going to move straight on to the bow. And we're going to do it in orange because we're going to do something a little bit different with the pumpkin. I love those blue-green pumpkins that you see everywhere. I tell you what, though, while we still have the brown out, let's go ahead and get into the centers of our sunflowers, just to keep from having to do another brush rinse. The only thing is now I'll just have to be sure to keep my hands out of the paint. And I got a little bit on the background right there, but I'll fix that at the very end. I normally keep baby wipes to cover over any little boo-boos, but I had a paint party the other night, and somehow all my baby wipes ended up in my kit that I packed for the party, and they have not made their way back upstairs yet. So, anyway, that's the thing about acrylic paint, though. If you don't manage to get it off before it dries, you can always just paint right over it, and it will be fine. So just kind of twist that brush as you go around the circle of the center, and that just kind of helps you to hold the edges. And I think maybe that is only going to take one coat after all on both the stem and the center. So what I like to do, if I have a little excess paint, I just get the brush and load it up on there and then put it back in the bottle so that I'm not wasting a ton of paint. So I'm just going to pop that in the rinse water and it probably wouldn't hurt it to sit just a few minutes, but I'm just going to go ahead and rinse that out right quick. Give this a little chance to dry just a bit. And then I'm just going to grab some of that orange and start right in on the bow. And again, just use that brush, just the very tip end of it, to just kind of grab those edges and just kind of slide it on there. And what I may do is, you want like inside these loops to be a slightly different color. So we'll just, in just a second, mix something else up in there. Maybe even some of that brown, just to give it a little more shadowed look. Or like it's the opposite side of the fabric. But just pull and twist to get those edges. Right there in that curve, you can just twist your brush and bring it up to the next edge. And then just fill in. And if you go over the lines into the part that's going to be the like the wrong side of the ribbon or the shadowed side, that's okay. Don't worry about going over the lines just a little bit right there, because we're going to cover over that with our slightly darker color in just a minute. So use that very tip end to get the tails of your ribbon. Just tip that brush up on the end, and it just gives it that crisp little edge. And do the same thing over here, and then just fill in. And sometimes I feel like it's easier to pull up than down across the line. I don't know why I didn't do that, but it's just really personal preference, and I do both, honestly. So however you want to get your paint down, whatever feels most comfortable to you is the way to go. So just want to get, we're going to be outlining this, so if it's a little bit not quite to the edge, it is going to be okay. But I'm just going to take just a drop of brown and mix into that orange, and just do the insides of the loops with that, just to give it a little depth. And again, just using that flat edge on the brush to work that in. And I don't know if you can tell that it's that much of a different color, but to me it does show up, and it does give it a little bit more of a realistic feel. And also when we go to do our outlines, that's really going to help with giving it a little more realism than there is now. So then we're going to take this color called Thicket. It's like a greenish grayish teal, I guess is the best way, but it is also Deco Art Americana. And it probably, let me see how it looks. I thought about mixing some white in there, but actually I think that's going to be fine just like that. So just the just some Thicket, and if you feel more comfortable with a little round brush to get in those little places like that, do that. But for most of this, I think you can probably do it with this little 1/4 inch brush, as long as it's still got the sharp edge, you know, like some of my brushes have been used to the point that they won't make a really crisp, sharp line anymore because they've just seen better days and they've gotten a little misshapen. But this one is in good enough shape that it will still do that. And I'm not going all the way. Well, I kind of did right there. I'm trying to leave just a little faint edge in here so that when we come in to do our outlines, I can kind of see where those lines go. But you don't want to overload your brush and leave a ridge, because if you have too much paint on there and get it too close to the edges, it'll leave a little raised place, and you don't want that. It's not the end of the world if it happens, but it's not best case scenario either. So just using that edge still and getting in all the little itsy bitsy places, like around the flower petals with that. To me, that part's kind of fun. It's almost like, I don't know, like a challenge of getting in the little places. And if you go over some of these downward lines, it is, again, not the end of the world. I just kind of like to be able to kind of see where my outline lines are going to go when the time comes, so that I'm not guessing at it. And I think probably since I didn't mix any white into this color called Thicket, maybe we can shade with a little bit of Thicket and white. I think that'll be pretty. And I was honestly kind of undecided about these colors until right before I started, because I was like, well, is that Thicket going to be too dark? And I have done blue pumpkins before in a color called Bahama Blue, but it's fairly bright, and I wanted something just a little bit more muted for this painting. But that's the thing about it. You can use whatever colors suit you. Make it your own. They don't have to be just what I'm using. And I'm jumping around a little bit trying to unload my brush some in the bigger places. But yeah, that's the thing about it. A painting may start with a tracer, but you make it your own with the colors you choose and just the way you paint. And, you know, there's different things you can do, like put glitter, or some people like to do bows on their door hangers. I'm not a very good bow maker, so I very seldom do that, but you can. That's something I do need to work on, though. But just know that just because it starts with a tracer does not mean that it just has to be a cookie cutter image that's just like everybody else's, because I'm always amazed, like when I do these at paint parties, there are never any two that turn out to be just alike. I can have a room full of 20 people and no two paintings are going to be just alike. It's just because everybody, whether they even realize they're doing it or not, everybody puts their own personal spin. Now, they may be close. I did one a couple of weeks ago where some of the ladies used the same color scheme, so, you know, it was really close, but it was not just exactly the same. And that's what I like about it, because I feel like each painting is as different as the painter who paints it. The world would be a boring place if we were all just alike. And so I think the variety of the things we paint is just a reflection of how we're all different as individuals. And that just also carries over into, a lot of times you'll hear me say, you do what feels comfortable to you. You know, if I'm using this brush, but you feel like the smaller one would feel better to you, then do that. Or even if you feel like the larger one would do better, do that. You just do whatever feels the best and gives you the result that you want. And with this part of it, it truly doesn't matter. It's just whatever you want to use. And that's the case most of the time when we're using a tracer. There's not hardly ever any like fancy brush strokes or anything like that. It's just blocking in the color and then adding in the accents and the outlines and the things that just really make it pop, and you've got it. So you truly do not have to be able to draw or to, I mean, I say even paint. It does make it easier once you have practiced for a while, but like what I mean by that is, you know, as far as different brush strokes and all, you don't need them. You don't have to have gone to like art school. I've never been to art school. I would have liked to, but that's not what life had in store for me. And, you know, this may not be fine art, but it's still art. And when you make something that you can look at and be proud of, that's what counts. And I think using a tracer just gives more of us an opportunity to do just that. And, you know, that way you can go from feeling like, oh, I could never paint that, to, oh my goodness, I did it. I painted that and I love it. So I'm just adding just a little bit of white to the thicket color, and I'm just mixing it up a little bit. You know what though? I want to show you another way to do this before we jump in with that lighter color. There's two ways to do this. You can just take just white and dip like one, I don't know if you would call that a corner, but just one half of the edge in the white and the other half in the teal. And look how that does. It just gives you like a little variegated stripe. And that's a good way to add some highlights to your pumpkin. Or you can mix it up and do it just with the lighter color. Whatever suits you. But I really like just giving it some, can you see what we're going for there? Just some little bits of highlights and shading there. So again, just one corner in the white and the other corner in the teal. And I did end up using some of that lighter. Well, and some darker. Anyway, just, and start with your white toward the outside edge is generally going to be the best way to add that little highlight. And then you can just blend it to however you like it. Or not even blend it much at all. Just whatever looks good to you is fine. And try not to overthink it. And also try not to overdo it. Because sometimes If I do too much to it, then I don't like it anymore. So I think that is all I'm going to do to that one, because I want to keep liking my pumpkin. And I feel like if I keep going, well, there I keep going anyway, but I don't want to mess it up. So enough of that. Now I'm going to take this color called Saffron Yellow, and that's what we're going to do our petals for our sunflowers with. So that probably won't take a lot either, but I'm going to start out with this brush, and if I need to drop back to the itty bitty brush, we can. Actually, I think these lines are going to be dark enough. I must not have shaken that one up good, because it's looking a little like it's not mixed up well. But don't take too much pains with this. Too many pains with this. I mean, if you go over the lines, I think with this color you can still see. Just don't get over onto your center or onto the background. But if you want to go directly over some of these inner lines, that is perfectly fine, because we're going to be coming back and doing some outlines anyway, and it is not going to matter. So, do you see, are you kind of getting an idea now of how you really can make a door hanger? Even if you're not particularly artistic or creative, like I believe everybody is creative in some way. You know, there's things maybe you haven't fully discovered about yourself, or maybe there's things that you've tried before and didn't suit you, but everybody has some kind of creativity to you. It may be just problem solving. You may be a creative cook. You may be artsy, craftsy, whatever, but everybody is creative in some way. But even if you feel like you're not, anybody can do this kind of painting if you want to. It may take you a little bit of time. And obviously, the more you practice anything, the easier it gets. But for the most part, I feel like you can do something like this and be proud of what you've done the very first try. And look, it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't know if you can see that, but I just got all kind of outside the line right there. It doesn't need to be perfect to be pretty. And I just don't want you to ever feel like intimidated or like you couldn't do something to the point that you wouldn't try, because painting with a tracer is just so satisfying, and I think it's just a really fun and inexpensive thing to get into too. So I don't know if I said, but just keep using the edge of that brush. And this one has got a stray bristle. That is so aggravating. Sometimes you can kind of tamp that down with some wet paint, but that little stray bristle just wants to stick right out and try to cause problems, but we're not going to let it. And if you have one like that, it is perfectly okay to trim that off, or just grab you another brush. But just keep using that edge to get in the little places. We're getting pretty close, y'all. I think once we get these flower petals done, then all we'll have to do is the leaves and a little bit of outlining and our welcome word. And I think what I'm going to do with that is like give you an alternate. Usually when I do tracers, the ones that are in my shop, I make them in a variety of sizes so that you can pick whatever size works best for whatever door hanger you want to get. And sometimes I might also vary the word on it. So for this one, since it's a pumpkin and sunflowers, I'll probably have one that says welcome and then one that says happy fall or hello fall or something like that. And if you have suggestions for another word that you would like to see on there, just leave it in the comments and I can go back and do that later. If there's something you would just especially like to see on there, and I can add it to the file. Because all of my tracers are digital products, meaning that once you buy the file, you download it from home and print it out on your printer from home, and you don't have to wait for anything to be delivered or anything like that. It's just all digital, and I really enjoy digital file. I purchased some on Etsy just the other day, and I'm not on Etsy anymore because long story that I won't get into right now, but I got kicked off Etsy, so I no longer have an Etsy shop. But the good news is you can find my stuff. Most everything that I had on Etsy even is in my online shop at King Gap Creative. So anyway, just getting in these last little places. And for the leaves, we're just going to use a little bit darker green called Aloe. And again, it is the Deco Americana as well. And we don't need a ton of that either, but enough to just get these leaves here. Now for the leaves, you can probably twist that brush a little bit to get around these rounded ends and edges, and that little wonky bristle is wanting to mess us up, but we're not going to let it. And once we get our outlines done, I don't think these two greens right here are going to clash at all. I hope not anyway, but I really don't think they will. So we're just getting down in these little teeny places. Again, if you feel better with the little brush, use the little brush. It is all good. And I think I feel better with the little brush right there. Maybe not for the whole thing, but right there, I think I need the little brush just to get around that petal. And I'm just going to go ahead and use it to get in between here too. And if it's not perfectly smooth, that is okay, because again, we will be doing some outlining. And I am definitely not the fastest painter in the world, for sure. It takes me a while to get paint down, but I don't mind it because it's not a race. You know, it's sometimes I call painting my therapy. I use it to, you know, just reduce some stress and relax. And, you know, if it takes me a while to paint something, that's all right. And if I don't have time to do it all in one sitting, that's okay. I can come back to it. Now, I know that's not the case if you're like doing a paint party with me or something in person, but online, if it's one of my videos where I've painted something online, you can pause it and come back to it later, save the video and come back to it later. So, you know, it shouldn't feel rushed. It shouldn't feel like a time crunch, because this is something for you. To me, painting is part of my self-care even. So, you know, I would never want it to feel like a chore or something that I was having to really fly through to do. I am liking this little round brush for this, because that little flexible tip is really doing well getting in these little places. And I'm going to try my best to think and link these kind of brushes in the description, because they are so inexpensive. Like, when I say dirt cheap, I mean like they're really, really inexpensive. Because I'm really on a budget right now too. I just retired last year from after 25 years of being in public education. I was a K-4 school counselor. So when I retired, that really, you know, reduced my income, but I'm loving it anyway. So it was fun, but it was time. And I feel like now is the time that I want to take to do something that's just for me. And as it turns out, the painting is my thing that's just for me. And maybe painting could be the thing that is just for you. You know, everybody needs something to call their own. And I know as women, a lot of times we get caught up in taking care of everybody else. But, you know, it's hard to pour from an empty cup. And so, you know, whether it's painting or something else, it's a good idea to find something that helps keep you feeling good. And in my case, something that keeps me feeling sane. I say it's my therapy because, you know, whether I'm sad, just tense, stressed, whatever, really, it just, somehow it helps. I can't explain it, but it does. So, oops, there's a little brush that I did not rinse. Oh, that's the one I started out with the green. But you know what? I think while we're here, I shouldn't have rinsed yet, because I want to go back and take just a little bit of this white that we still have left. Dip that corner in the green, and do just a tiny bit of blending on the leaves too. It doesn't have to be a great deal, but just a little bit of shading, just to give it a little bit of pop. And this one corner white and one corner of the base color is truly my most favorite way to shade usually. I think it is just really easy, and just a corner and a corner, and run it along your plate just to make sure it's how you want it. And then just pull it down and make some little highlights, and that just makes it look better. Gives it that depth that you're looking for. Okay, so here we are We are moving right along. I didn't do any highlights on the bow yet either. So let's do that. A corner in the orange, a corner in the white, and just kind of pull it around. Make sure it's like you want it, and then just kind of blend it till it looks good to you. And it just kind of gives it a 3D effect, I guess, is the biggest thing. So a corner in the white, a corner in the orange. And just till it looks good. And I think sometimes less is more. Now, without rinsing my brush, and I'll just be honest, I don't know how this is going to look. I'm just going to pull some of that we mixed up with the brown and orange and a little bit of white, and do a little shading on the stem too. Just a tiny bit. And I think that's enough. And now I am just going to take one of these little paint pens. These are the Gravy extra fine tip. You don't have to have these. A lot of times I do my lining with just a little paintbrush. But this one, I'm just going to use this. Sometimes I don't love these because you do have to like pounce them like that to get them started. And sometimes if you put too much pressure, they kind of splatter. And I don't like that a lot. But if you use just a light touch with them, usually they do pretty good. So I'm just going around these edges, just giving it a little bit of outline. And for some reason, it's not like spitting back on me this time. I guess this surface is smooth enough. It did a little bit right there. Smooth enough that it's not going to do that. But these outlines are what's going to give it that little bit of pop. And I hope I'm not putting my hand down in wet paint, because I just totally seem to forget that could still be wet. But I don't think it is. Maybe a little bit of that might still be, but hopefully not. I don't mind getting it on my hand. I mind smearing my painting is the biggest thing, because I keep paint on my hands and arms all the time. But yeah, that's a little splatter, but I can always touch it up. But if you use light enough pressure, usually that is not gonna happen with these. And the Poscas, it never does that. But I just wanted a little bit of a thinner line than what the Posca paint pen gives you. Because if you can tell, see, like, the Posca is much thicker than this little fine tip one. So, anyway, moving right along with this. Just going around this edge. And I'm trying to see where my little pumpkin section lines were. I think maybe we had another one right along in here. I think I covered over that a little bit too well. I was trying to leave just a little bit of a space. But if you didn't, like I didn't, you can always just kind of guess where your section lines are. And just bringing that on around, just and down. And that's really it. Just doing a little outline. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you get a little bit inside the color, I think sometimes that looks even better. So we're just doing a little quick outline. Again, it is not a race. I'm just moving fast because I feel like y'all are probably about done with me by now. And then we're just going to do the word welcome with one of these bigger Posca paint pens. But don't feel like you have to have a paint pen to do this project. Just a little fine liner brush and a little dip of black paint will do the same thing. I'm just, like I said, trying to go a little quicker this particular time, but you know, don't feel like you got to go out and buy a bunch of supplies to paint your first door hanger, because you don't actually need all that junk. I like to tell people, you know, if you're interested in starting painting, just start with either things you already have on hand or just, you know, inexpensive little paints, and then you can build your collection as you go. And as you see that you're going to like it and stick with it, then you can venture out and buy more things, because it's so tempting to just go out and buy all the things. And that's a temptation I have to really fight too. But then when I get up here in my little craft room, I see that I can have just as much fun with just the basics. Not that I don't like grabbing something new sometimes. It's fun. But, you know, you don't have to have that. That's just icing on the cake if you can buy all the things. But I hope you can see how this is making this pop a little bit. And I will link these little pens in case you do want to try them. But once again, not a must. And sometimes if it starts spattering, just pop it down on the table like that until it starts flowing smoothly again. I think that time it just didn't have enough paint coming out, so I had to pounce it down on the table a little bit to get it rolling. All right. And sometimes I do think using a brush to outline may look a little bit better, but the pen is so easy, and it just, so I kind of just use them interchangeably, just however I'm feeling that day. And sometimes it's dependent on what kind of painting it is. Like some of them, I think it's okay to have the thick Posca paint pen lines. But for this, I wanted something just a little bit more subtle. Feels like it's fixing to do that little spattery thing again, but maybe not. Okay, so then after that, just real quick, I want to take the white Posca and just pounce in just a few little dots. You can also do this. You could use like the end of a brush dipped in white paint to do that, and that would do just as well. But now we're just going to use the black Posca pen. And again, do this with a brush too, but for the lettering, if I was going to buy a paint pen of any kind, it would be this black Posca marker, because I think I do more with the black than anything else. And my lettering freehand, y'all, it's not great. It's not terrible, but it is not great. So I love using a tracer for my words. That just really works good for me. And I know we talked about this already, but just remember when you're using that tracer to always, and forevermore go shiny side down. Because what made me think of that was one time I was doing something that was all lettering. It didn't have any color, like a picture or any color to it at all. It was just black lettering on a white background. And I had worked so hard. It was a Bible verse, so it was like long. And when I got finished tracing, or so I thought, I pulled that tracing paper up off of it, and there was nothing there. And I had traced till my hand hurt, and I was so sad. And it was because I didn't have my carbon graphite paper shiny side down. So that is the most important thing I can think about, think of to tell you when it comes to using tracers. Just always go shiny side down. I've thought about making a t-shirt with that on it. I got started doing this kind of thing, designing t-shirts, so of course my mind goes to what could I make a t-shirt with. And that was what my Etsy shirt was. It wasn't paintings, it was t-shirt designs. So, but yeah, shiny side down, I think that would make a really good t-shirt. Okay, we've about got it, y'all. And if I can do this, you can too. I promise. Like, don't be afraid to try, because I think you are really going to be pleasantly surprised at how well you can do with a tracer. And well, I use them for literally everything. Like, I make things for myself. I make things to gift. I make things sometimes even to sell. So just the possibilities are absolutely endless. And here we have our finished sign. I'm going to have the file linked for you below. So if you want to paint this yourself at home, you can. I will have a supply list, the tracer in different sizes, and I didn't go back and fix these little spatters yet, but I will. But you get the idea. So don't be afraid to paint one of these for yourself. You can totally do it. I have confidence in you. So just go get that tracer and paint that first door hanger. You can do it.